All right, good afternoon. Sorry for delaying getting started. The court's going to take up the next case, CV2011468. This is in the interest of Grace Greenwood, a child. The case is set for a initial permanency hearing today. The hearing is being conducted pursuant to emergency orders of the Texas Supreme Court via Zoom video conference. Participating in the hearing today on behalf of the department is to engage case manager Austin Stevenson, Supervisor Tracy Perry, and Brown County Assistant Attorney Terry Moore. The mother of the child is Stacy Neal, and she's participating in the hearing with her attorney Lee Haney. The identified as a father of the child was Frank Greenwood, and Mr. Greenwood is participating in the hearing today. Patrick Howard has been appointed as his attorney in the case, and Mr. Howard is not currently present. The alleged father of the child is Patrick German, and I'll check in a minute to confirm if he's on the conference or not. The attorney and guardian ad litem for the child is Chelsea Timmons, and Ms. Timmons is participating. I would note Patrick Howard, I believe, is about to join our conference. I show on the main screen somebody participating by phone, area code 254, last three digits 901. If you're on that phone, could you identify yourself for the court, please?
Nancy Greenwood.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Nancy Greenwood.
Nancy Greenwood. Okay. Ma'am, how are you related to the child that's the subject of the suit?
Well, I'm the great-grandmother, now I guess whatever they want to call me now.
All right, thank you. All right, the court is going to excuse the child from participating in the hearing today. All right, we're ready to proceed. I'm going to ask Ms. Neal, Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Greenwood, if you would each raise your right hands, please. Each of you solemnly swear or affirm any testimony you give today before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Moore, if you're ready.
Thank you. I'll call Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson, what is your connection to the Grace Greenwood matter?
I am the permanency case manager for Grace Greenwood.
Okay. And Grace is 4 years old. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, where is Grace currently?
Grace is placed with Miss Greenwood, the one that is on the phone with us today. That's who the caregiver is for Grace.
The great grandmother.
Great grandmother, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. All right. And so how is that placement going?
It's gone well. The courtesy worker, Miss Lynetta Morgan, checks in with me regularly to let me know, how her visit goes when she puts eyes on Grace and, everything like that. The times that I have been over to Miss Greenwood's house and had time to interact with Grace and talk with Miss Greenwood in person, and we also talk on the phone. Things for the most part are going well. The one concern, which medically we've been told isn't supposed to be a huge concern, but a concern on the department side of thing or Two Gage's side of things, is the fact that Grace is not fully potty trained yet. But as far as her emotional well-being and proper development, she's doing well.
Okay. All right. And there's a courtesy worker involved because great grandma and Grace do not reside in Brown County?
Yes, ma'am.
And where do they reside? What county?
They're in Coryell County.
Okay. All right. And so the mom, Stacy Neal, is my understanding she lives in Granbury and she's now married. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how has she done with regard to working her services?
She's done a great job. She's one of my better moms that actually stays on top of me about making sure that things get done. She has gone the extra distance to either mail her parenting packets, or she will sometimes be in Brownwood and she'll notify me and say, hey, I'm in Brownwood, can we meet up so I can give you the parenting packets? She and her husband have completed everything. There were a couple of other additional services that came out of their psychosocial assessments with Dr. Bill Gustavus. When I called and told them, hey, here's what the recommendations are, here's what we need to do, they didn't hesitate to do what was necessary and do whatever they need to.
Okay. Now, with regard to Frank Greenwood, and it's his grandmother, I guess, if I'm thinking correctly, that
Yes.
actually has Grace. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But did it turn out through DNA that Frank Greenwood is not actually the father?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he's aware of that, and everybody's aware of that at this point. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so potentially, I guess the biological father could be this Patrick Germain or German?
Patrick German. Yes, ma'am.
German. Okay. But it's with a J. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. But we need DNA testing on him to confirm that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Has he given any indication whether he wants to have the DNA testing, or whether what's his position in all this?
So I called Mr. German and spoke with him over the phone, and he said that he is certainly agreeable to taking the test, just so that there is a confirmation of who the biological dad could be for Grace. However, his intentions are to sign over his rights. He doesn't want to interfere with Miss Neal and Mr. Neal being able to have Grace in their home, and so he's willing to do that after everything is confirmed through DNA testing.
Okay. And so are we needing a court order today for the DNA testing? Is that part of what we need today?
That's part of what we're seeking. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And ultimately, or in the not too distant future, what are we looking at in terms of visitation or monitored return with regard to Grace and her mom?
We have already begun to increase the length of visits, as well as we have moved the visits to unsupervised, so that Miss Neal and Mr. Neal can pick up Grace and go out around Gatesville and do things together as a family. And we'll be monitoring all of that to see how things go, check on the relationship, make sure that the proper bonds are being done. In the meantime, the Neals are doing regular ongoing counseling with Dr. Bill Gustavus in preparation for, hey, you're about to be parents of a 4-year-old. We will be increasing all the visits. We have the ongoing counseling, so that hopefully in the next couple months, we will be able to begin a monitored return.
I see. Okay. All right. And so today, then, the department is asking that it continue as the temporary managing conservatorship, and that the Grace's placement be continued and approved. And during the next 4 months until the permanency hearing, you're looking at doing a stair-stepped monitored return. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you'll need an order approving that action by the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else about Grace or the parental situation, or great grandma's situation? Anything else that we need to know about, or that the judge needs to know about today?
So we do want to ask that Mr. Frank Greenwood be dismissed from the case, since he not only is he not the father, but he's also not being considered for placement for Grace. And then we do want to make it known that we are wanting to try to keep healthy connections for Grace with the relationships that she does have. And so we have put a safety plan in place that Ms. Greenwood, the current caregiver, signed, stating that she would make sure that Frank was not around Grace, but some of his mom, and as well as his sister is allowed to still go over and be able to be around Grace, just so that Grace still has some of those familial bonds, even if they aren't blood.
Okay, all right. And is there a reason, I mean, other than the fact that he's not the biological father, is there a reason that Frank Greenwood can't visit in person himself, or?
Yes, ma'am. There are some pending charges on Mr. Greenwood involving children, and we just don't feel that it would be safe to have him around them or at the time.
And he's aware of that and has abided by that to this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And the placement that he's in, the placement that Grace is in, they understand and they agree to that limitation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So today then we're also asking that Mr. Greenwood be dismissed from the suit, essentially because he is not the biological father.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
And Mr. Haney, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Stevenson, first of all, I either did not receive or could not locate the report for this hearing. Is that something you can forward to me?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. It sounds like Mom is doing very well, and you've indicated you are doing a stepped up visitation plan looking towards a monitored return. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that Mom and her husband can do to make that go faster that they're not already doing?
No, sir. At this time, it's just a matter of time passing and allowing connections to grow.
And speaking of which, has her husband been participating in visits with Grace?
He has made, I believe his first one was this past Sunday for Grace's birthday. There is a schedule conflict of him working from 8 to 6. He actually works here in Brownwood. And so as far as travel and his schedule, he's not always available to do that. But from what I understand from Miss Neal, they are going to start doing either Saturday or Sunday visits on Mr. Neal's day off so that Mr. Neal can participate and work on that growing relationship.
Well, I appreciate that. So it's really a little early to say yet where they've developed any sort of relationship, right?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, any questions?
Not for Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. Ms. Timmons, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Moore, any other questions?
No, Your Honor, I'll just ask the court to take judicial notice of the court file.
Mr. Haney, any questions? I mean, excuse me, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, any witnesses?
I'll ask Mr. Greenwood a few questions.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Greenwood, you have received the DNA test, have you not?
I haven't received it. No, not yet.
Okay. Well, so you haven't seen a copy of it?
No, sir.
Okay. Did I not send it to you by email?
I haven't received it on my email. No, sir.
Okay. And you're aware, though, that the DNA test basically rules you out as the father?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think you've written some emails and maybe even tried to contact the court. In your mind, you still dispute that. Is that true?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I thought you wrote me an email asking me that you wanted another DNA test.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so that's what I'm asking you about. You feel like you're still the father of this child and you're asking for another DNA test.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so I just wanted the judge to hear that from you. Do you have any reason to believe that last one was tampered with or not correct?
I just feel like where we had it done at, that they didn't do their job correctly, because the way they handled the way they did the procedure, it just seemed a little weird to me the way they done it, because it took them they did the swab in my mouth, but it took them a little bit to get it in the container.
Okay.
And then,
So basic bottom line is you just like a second opinion or a second test?
yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Moore, any questions?
No questions.
This is Nancy Greenwood. I have a question.
Ma'am, I'm sorry you're not a party to the suit, so I can't allow you to ask questions.
Well, it's not a question. It's just a statement.
Okay, well, ma'am, if somebody wants to call you as a witness, they can do that, and I'll give you an opportunity, since you're a caregiver, in a minute to make a statement. But we're going to go in the order I direct. Okay.
All right.
I'll come back to you in just a minute. All right. Let's see, Miss Timmons, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Haney, if I didn't ask, did you have any questions?
No questions, although I will thank Mr. Stevenson. I see he's already sent me the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Howard, let me come back to your client's request. So my understanding is Mr. Greenwood wants a second test. Is he going to pay for it?
Well, Judge, we can ask him that. I'm really just passing on that message. If he's dismissed, then, I probably go away with him, I presume.
You will go away with him because he won't be the father. But and I understand you're just trying to represent his interests, but I want to be clear. We've already ordered a test. Unless there's some better evidence that this test was invalid, I have no reason to order a second test in a case. And if I do order it, he would be paying for it since he's the one that's asking for it. So I just want to see what his position is about that. If you want to ask him that, and
Sure.
We can address that. But if it's going to be ordered, he'll be paying the cost of the test. Go ahead if you want to ask him that question.
Sure. Thank you, Judge. So, Mr. Greenwood, you heard that. You understand these DNA tests, the cost can be substantial if we're privately paying for them. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are you willing to prepay for any costs associated with that DNA test, even if it's $300, $400, $500, $600 or more?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you understand if the judge did order that, he would probably make you pay that amount in full to engage or through me prior to doing that DNA test?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you feel that strongly about it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you understand that the extreme probability is that DNA test is going to come back just like the last one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Judge. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Greenwood, do you have the ability to pay for a test? Because right now you have a court-appointed attorney, so I'm not going to order something that you can't pay for. But you will be paying for it if I order it, and you'll be putting the money up front. So if you want this test, I may be willing to order it, but I'm not going to order it if you're not going to pay for it. So you got to have the money to do it. And we're not gonna spend a long time waiting for you to get the money. If you've got the money, good, and we can address it. But this won't be a situation where you're gonna have 3 or 6 months to come up with the money. If I order it, you'll have to come up with the money when it's ready and requested for you to pay it. So just want to make sure you are aware of that, and you have the ability to come up with that money if it's ordered by the court.
Yes, sir. And I'll be able to afford it when it's ready to do it.
Okay, well, I want to be clear. If the court orders it and you fail to pay the money when it's requested, then the order will be rescinded. There'll be no further testing, and you'll be non-suited and dismissed from the case.
Yes, sir. I understand.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Stevenson, is Mr. Greenwood on the birth certificate? Is that the basis for his original naming? Is that what we understood and why he was named as a father?
That's my understanding, yes, sir. Ms. Neal might be able to give us more detail to that.
All right. Well, Mr. Howard, I'm going to keep you in the case for the time being, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pursuant to Chapter 160 of the Texas Family Code, since there is a contention by Mr. Greenwood that the original test was invalid. I'm going to order a second test to be conducted on him within the next 60 days. And that test will be preconditioned on him paying in advance to engage or to the testing facility or to the AG, depending on who that test is going to go through, the full cost of the test. If he fails to provide the money that's required to conduct the test when requested, then the court's order to order such testing will be rescinded, and I'll take up at the next hearing whether or not he should be non-suited and dismissed from the case at that point. I'd ask the department to prepare an order consistent with the court's findings on that. And let me come back. I believe Ms. Greenwood, you had something you wanted to, a statement you wanted to make, I believe.
The only thing I want to say is that Grace cries for her daddy. She wants to know where he is, why he can't come. And I am so tired of lying to the child. It's really hard on her that she can't see her daddy that's been her daddy for the last 4 years. Whether he's biologically his child or not, it's hurting the child.
And Mr. Stevenson, is Gracie on any type of counseling at this point? I didn't remember from your report.
Not at the moment, no, sir.
I may want to consider whether that would be appropriate to get that set up to help her address that issue. All right. Thank you. All right. Anything
It was
else?
all.
I'm sorry.
I've been told that AJ was going to set up for someone to come to the house, and that's been a month or longer ago, and I've not heard anything on it.
Sometimes it takes a little while to get therapists set up, but I'd ask Mr. Stevens to follow up on that and see if we can get something set up for her. All right. Anything else?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I got one other thing. Can I do this on my own?
And you'll need to coordinate with the department about any treatment or counseling that the child's going to have, and make sure that right now they are the temporary managing conservator and they have the authority to approve or disapprove that. So you'll need to consult with them. I'm not saying someone you get might not be appropriate, but you need to run it by them and make sure they're not an issue with it and the other parties.
Okay, I'm just concerned about the child.
No, I understand, ma'am, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate everything you've been doing for the child while the child's been in your care. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right. The court will continue the department as temporary managing conservator and continue the child in the current placement at this time. All other orders remain in place. The next hearing in the case right now is a permanency hearing and pretrial set on September 2nd, 2021 at 9:45 a.m. A trial is set on October 28, 2021 at 2 p.m. I'm required to notify any parent in this type of case that because of the nature of these proceedings, your parental custodial rights and duties may be subject to restriction or even termination in your progress, and any court orders or plans of service will be reviewed at future hearings in the case. That will be adjourned for today.